summarize where we've been with the StrengthsFinder. Remember that the StrengthsFinder was based upon a study of excellence, and the power of the StrengthsFinder assessment is understanding. It is understanding me, myself, and understanding you, yourself, and appreciating who I am and who you are, how we are wired, what our DNA is, and build upon that rather than putting up defenses against that or being offended by each other. So there's that power of understanding, self-understanding, other understanding, self-awareness, other awareness. In leadership, we talk about basically the basics of the definitions of leadership that are out there. It's just basically leaders and followers working together toward a shared goal. Well, if that's really what we want to do, how best do we do that? I think the StrengthsFinder is an incredible place to start because first of all, it's fun, it's engaging, we get to learn about ourselves, we get to be a bit selfish because how many times in life do we get to just slow down enough to just focus on self? So I want you to do that as you become a student of the Strengths, and I really do. That is one of my challenges to you, that you choose to become a student of the Strengths in order to understand self and others. One of the outcomes that I think I have seen so benefit relationships and teams and organizations over this last decade and a half is the richness of language that gets embedded into a culture. And also the understanding that it isn't necessarily something personal about you that I either appreciate or so dislike. It's just the way you're wired. So if we can generate this rich language, this rich understanding, let me give you a couple of examples. I've talked about activator a lot. Someone can either be an activator, you know, they're really good. If we really need to get something going, yeah, let's get Bill because he is such an activator. Or don't put Bill on this team because he's such an agitator. That would tell us that Bill is either activator at very much strengths level or he hasn't developed that talent into strength yet, and maybe that's not who we want there, but with a little bit of work or a little bit of understanding, we might get that. So the distinction there of agitator versus activator, I know as an individual, I would much rather be known as the activator rather than the agitator. Think about the theme of maximizer. We talked about maximizer, you know, taking something that's working really well and making it better. But if left at talent level, this could be the perfectionist that nothing is ever good enough for anyone. With maximizer, this is the theme that many times that little word but is used, and if you are a person that knows a maximizer or works with a maximizer, you're going to know this. No matter what you do for them, even if they affirm what you do for them, it's going to be, that was a great job, but. Okay, so when we move it to talent strength, or move it to strengths from that talent, then that word but is erased, and so that it doesn't negate everything that's happened before. So as we look at the richness of language, we want to be maximizers, not necessarily perfectionists in that. Think about the theme of belief. You know, in the richness and the language culture, you know, this is the person that so values what we're about. They understand our organizational values. They've got individual values that so correlate, that help us get to where we want to go, versus being a person that's just stubborn. Okay, not willing to embrace others. Or in our rich language, to be able to call someone analytical. They love that question why, because they want to get to that deeper understanding rather than maybe just being a person that's anal, you know, that never quite understands it all. So understanding the richness and the culture of the language. One more example of that, I think, is always just this idea of command, which is one, I mentioned that when we talked about the theme. You know, no, we're not talking about the person that always has to have their way or is the dictator of our group, but this person with command knows how to come in and can rally us all together to help us get to where we need to go. That's what command looks like. I want you to consider, as we draw to a close on this, I want you to think back into the last couple of weeks. What were some of those moments in time? Can you identify them where you just loved what you did, you appreciated, you walked away from it, you hope you get to do it again? And I want you to analyze what was going on at that moment, what was that situation like? And I want you to post your strengths right beside that, your strengths themes, and see, can I draw lines? You know, from how I'm wired to what it is I got to do, what my role was. I'm guessing if you thoroughly enjoyed it, you're going to be having lines going all different directions. But I also want you to think backwards, and is there any moment in time where you hope you never have to repeat it? You hope you're never asked to do that project again, or maybe partner with that person, or have to do that opportunity again. And same thing, post your themes there, and are you able to draw any lines? If you can't draw any lines, basically what you're doing in the moment is managing a non-strength. You are learning to live that moment in time, and you probably gave it the best that you had, but if you had to do it again and do it repeatedly, it would be draining, and it would be demotivating, in some cases probably demoralizing if that's something you had to do all the time. It's that thing when we talked about strengths writing with our dominant hand. If you had to write with your non-strengths hand and do that for a prolonged period of time, could you do it? You might be able to do it, but you would have to think very carefully, how do I form that letter? How do I spell that word? Versus that idea of just being able to have it flow through you, as is what strengths do. And then you've thought backwards. I want you to think forwards. Is there anything coming up in the next week or two that you can hardly wait for? You know, you are just so thinking about it, can't hardly wait for it. In your extra spare moments, you are already readying yourself for it. Do the same thing. What's happening? What's your role? What is your strengths mix here? And where can you draw the lines? Why is this so enticing and tantalizing to you? And then, is there anything coming up that you're totally dreading? And I'm not talking about going to the dentist, okay? I'm talking about something that you are engaged in, that you know you're either responsible for, that you have a role in, but you can hardly wait till it's over and you hope you never have to do it again. Same thing probably will happen where you look at what the opportunity is, what the roles and responsibilities are, and how you are wired. What are you bringing to the table? I'm guessing you're not going to find a lot of lines there. Now, if you can't do anything about the past, but in what is upcoming, do you have any opportunity in that last scenario, if you're not really looking forward to it, to partner with anyone else that might be able to walk with you through this in order to be that person that allows you to manage that non-strength in order to produce a strengths-based outcome for yourself. We've talked a lot in all of these videos about how we give out of our strengths. What I want to do is to conclude this set of videos to recognize we don't just give from our strengths, we receive from our strengths as well. And I'm going to tell you, give you just a story. We had a woman in class a couple of years ago. In our organizational leadership cohort, we always start our cohorts and our programs by taking the StrengthsFinder. It is a great way to get to know each other. People don't know each other. As faculty, I don't know anybody, and it's a great way to break the ice, good icebreaker, and we want to help students on their academic trajectory, you know, to understand what's going to be exciting to them, what's not going to be exciting to them. Well, this one woman, and she told us, so I'm not disclosing anything, she told us she was 35, and her top strength was individualistic. And that, remember, that's the one where we look at everybody unique in and of themselves. And one of the examples of that is even in gift giving, you know, giving to a point that is specific to the person. So here's what she told us as we were closing out the night, and it had been a very energizing, energetic evening. There were about 15 people sitting around the table that night. She was packing everything up, and she said, well, I'm going to call my mom on the way home. This is like 9:30 at night, and we're all going, well, that's really nice of you to call your mom. And she said, no, you don't understand. I really learned something tonight. She said, well, individualistic is mine. You know, it's all about, you know, that's the way I look at life. You are unique in and of yourself. My mom has done this. She said, I realize now for my mom, it's probably her 34th theme, and here's why. All my life, my mom has said to me, you know, what would you like for your birthday? What would you like for Christmas? And she said, I still really don't remember a time where I have ever received a gift that I told my mom I would like, that I would enjoy, that I would appreciate. And she goes, the older I've gotten, I realize it really is impacting my attitude towards my mom, to the point I'm getting quite resentful. And when mom says, oh, your birthday's coming up, what would you like for your birthday? She said, I'm really quite snarky anymore. I just say, what difference does it make, Mom? You're not going to get it for me anyway. And she said, tonight, she said, it is just like a burden has been lifted on me, because I realize now that while I give out of that individualistic theme, I also receive that way, but that's where I have to appreciate who my mom is, realizing that's probably number 34 for you. And if she's going to give me a gift card, I will receive that gift card with all pleasure, realizing my mom is giving to me out of who she is. So I think that story, where I want us to understand and kind of conclude all of our thought process about strengths, is who am I? Who are you? How do we live together so that we live rich lives together, rich teams together, rich organizations together, but we still get to be who we are, but with greater awareness, greater understanding, greater interaction, in the sense of we know that we each get to play to our strengths. And that's really my goal for you in this whole series of StrengthsFinder. Now, in Organizational Leadership 310, ORGL 310, there are some action steps for you. And after you have watched all of these, and I hope that you have done several things. I hope that you have downloaded the PDF reports from Gallup. I hope that you have read through every single one of those descriptive paragraphs, and that you have highlighted everything that sounds like you, and you have crossed out anything that doesn't sound like you. And then in that process, and that you have skimmed through the StrengthsFinder 2.0 book. Basically, it's the first 30 pages that will give you information, and you know that book is just small, so it's not going to take you long to read those 30 pages. The rest of the pages are basically just theme descriptions. What I've provided for you in the document of the StrengthsFinder quadrants, with all 4 quadrants on there and all 34 themes, that gives you a snapshot of each theme. We've talked through each one of those themes, but that reality of now you can read through those if you want to get a general understanding. But for you personally, pay attention to your PDF report. Now with that, I want you to start figuring out how to manage your non-strengths. What will you do with that? I'm not going to give you the freedom to walk away and say, well, that's not my strength, get over it. But I want you to recognize how you are going to manage those non-strengths, and that's where the action steps become very profitable and valuable for you in the reports that you receive from Gallup. Strengths are a theme that are going to be threaded throughout this program. You will notice even in the next 4 weeks of ORGL 310, you are going to be asked to incorporate your strengths results into the varieties of assignments that are given as you develop your storyline, as you develop your chart, as you look at your moral development. The strengths will be incorporated in that as you develop perceptions and perspectives. At the end of this week 1, your assignment is to write a 3 to 4 page paper that basically is saying, what do I now know about me that I didn't know before studying strengths, as I have through the videos that I've watched and looking at the resources that I have in hand. You're going to upload that into Moodle, and I will, with great anticipation, read through that with you and comment back and get your grade back with you. And then I will visit you again at the end of the program in ORGL 490, the course Leading and Change. We will visit strengths again. We will look at it through a little different lens, but what we're doing right now in the program is to set you up to succeed academically, understanding who you are with your strengths. But then at the end, we want to just kind of thrust you out of the program, back out into your career, wherever it is you're going, with a greater understanding of who you are. So we will be using a different text. We'll be using StrengthsFinder strengths-based leadership in that course. And we'll look at the strengths more in a synthesis view. What do I do with that? How have I received leadership from others? Now understanding how they are leading through their strengths as well. And we will also be looking at how I follow and who my followers are through the lens of strengths as well. So I am so pleased that you are part of the Organizational Leadership Program. I am always available for questions. My contact information obviously is in the course site, it's in the syllabus, it's on the documents that you have, and do not hesitate to reach out to me and just enjoy your journey.